All right. I don't want to say we were saving the best for last because we had so many good speakers. They were all the best. Um, I actually wrote a terrific introduction for Kim, and I all I had to do was hit send, and it would be right here, and I'd be reading it. But I forgot to hit send, and then I packed up my bag. So let me now just talk about Kim, the Kim that I know. Kim and I met probably over 30 years ago. When did you when did you start? Then it had to be 96. All right, close to 30 years ago. I knew her when she was the president of the North American Council on Adoptable Children. And then she started, and we have 8-year terms on that organization. And then after she served her 8-year term, she became a staff person at the North American Council on Adoptable Children. And then about 8.5 years ago, I had joined that same organization's board of directors that I've been involved with for 35, 40 years. And I recently had gotten off of the board when we transitioned from the what we've known for 50 years as the North American Council on Adoptable Children to now Families Rising. And Kim now is on the board of Families Rising, and she's the president of the board. She's such an influential person that she became president like the first year they had her back on the board. So, and she's an amazing person, an amazing experience, amazing adoptive parent who recently did a workshop for our entire staff. This is the last one. If you don't mind, just paying attention, I'd really appreciate it. And my staff was so impressed with an adoptive parent that understood when they first started, there were things that they didn't know. And then she had really was real clear with us what she might have done differently if she had the knowledge that she has now back when she started parenting. So everybody was so impressed, especially me, was so impressed with that presentation to my entire staff. And we said, she has to come to this conference. She's a dear friend of the coalition, dear friend of mine. And her generic topic today was going to be cultivating resilience of the soul. And I'm not, and I know you're a consultant. I know you're doing all sorts of work, but I'm going to let you tell the world what you're doing now, because I had it really written out very nicely, and I didn't hit send. So I'm going to turn this over to Kim Stevens.
So the presentation that I thought I was doing, and this is part of the amusement of Pat, I thought I was doing a presentation on attachment and attunement. And then Pat called me a while ago and he said, it's too complicated. We have to talk. I can't send it to you. I have to talk to you. And then I need to send to you something. And because I love Pat, I said, whatever you want me to do, I will do it. And he came up with this beautiful title, Cultivating Resilience of the Soul. What's the rest? Grace and wisdom from mistakes made. Now, what I would have called it was, if I can make this thing work, because I can't, because I don't know how. Somebody young, help me. I don't know. Help.
My presentation now.
What? Oh, this doesn't do it.
Right. Otherwise, if it's not that.
So this is what I would have called it. I thought, what?
You're good. You're good.
Screwing up and making amends. So,
Just one little correction.
yeah.
What you just said was so brilliant that I didn't actually come up with it. I'm pretty sure Claudia came up with it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Chester, don't you dare leave this building without letting me hug you. All right. So honestly, my husband and I came into this whole thing. We got married when we were 23. We had no idea what we were doing, but we knew when we got married, we both wanted to have children that were born to us, and we wanted to have children that we adopted from the foster care system. Both of us, because we had pretty weird upbringings. Him for some reasons, me for different reasons. I don't think he was as dumb as I was, because as much as my childhood upbringing probably would have had me land in foster care had it happened now. In fact, I even went to the court and tried to get my 3 younger siblings out of my parents' care so that I could raise them. In spite of all that, I thought we would go and we would adopt a little girl from foster care because we had 2 boys that were perfect. And that little girl would either be deaf or have Down syndrome, because learning sign language would be fun. So embarrassing to say this. And kids who had Down syndrome were just so lovely and lovable and wonderful. This is my thinking. I actually got approved to be a foster adoptive parent, if you can believe it. I didn't tell the social worker that part of it. I answered the questions the way I thought they wanted me to. But I did. I was really dumb. I was really naive. I was really, really stupid. But I also really, really, really remembered what it was like to grow up in a family where I both adored and loved my mother and father and was terrified of them. Not unlike a lot of the kids we know, right? Holding those 2 truths at once. And thank God I could remember that, because my other thoughts were completely ridiculous. So we had 2 little boys, they were 8 and 2, and we called and we said, we want to do this thing. And miraculously, we met a social worker who worked for an organization that back in the day was called Project Impact. And at Project Impact, they had a federal grant to do work in a new way. Everybody that worked there was an adoptive parent of kids that were being adopted from the foster care system. And all the kids that they worked with were older kids or kids with medical fragility. I knew I wasn't going to be good with medical fragility, but hey, I could think about an older kid. So we met an incredible social worker, which was very helpful. He introduced us to, does the little red button work? Does it? I don't even know. These are my people. This guy right here, that's Jim. We met him when this guy was 2, and that bald guy over there that's not as old as the other bald guy was 8. And I have to tell you, when we met Jim, we met him at a mayor adoption party. I know Maureen was trashing the Massachusetts system with good reason, but Mayor does really good work, the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. So we met Jim. He was 15 years old. And our social worker, who was also an adoptive parent and a birth parent, said to my husband, Buddy, who he had become friends with, Jim loves basketball just like you and I do. Do you see Jim? Do you see how short Jim is? Jim had never played basketball. But we went out on the basketball court for about an hour and a half and shot hoops. The 2 little boys, my husband and myself. And in that course of time, we got to feel a connection with this kiddo. And we got to say to ourselves, hey, how hard can it be? Only 3 years, right? He'll be 18, he'll be on his own. Isn't that what happens? Duh. It is not what happens. Just going to tell you that. So I'm going to talk to you about mistakes that I made and the ways that my kids have taught me how to learn from those mistakes. So one of the things that happened with Jim, we went to pick him up. We met him in June at this adoption party. His birthday was July 17th. I keep calling it 13th, but it wasn't. It's July 17th. And we went out to visit him and brought him a camera for a birthday present, because in August, we were going to go on a family vacation, and we got permission to bring him for half of the vacation. Our social worker, Chris O'Shea. Anybody ever know Chris O'Shea? He's a great guy. He brought Jim up to Maine to have this vacation with us on a pond. So 2-year-old, 8-year-old, 2 dumb people, one dumber than the other, and a 15-year-old kid who was a staunch Republican that wanted to join the Navy and go to war and like to hunt and fish, has now moved in with a family who are so far to the left, they're almost anarchists, won't kill a fly or an ant, you shoo them out the door, a little Buddhism in there. And the first night he came, he said, I'm gonna make dinner for us. Oh, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna catch us some catfish. And I'm gonna make up some dinner for us. And he did. He went down to the pond that we were staying at. I keep looking at him thinking, oh my God, it was such a scary night. And he did. He caught a bunch of fish. He let me know what to buy at the store for him because he knew he was going to catch a bunch of fish because he knew that he was a good fisherman. And goes up to the house. I said, can I help you with preparing the fish? He looked at me. He said, no, you can't. Like, I just know you can't. 20 minutes, half hour goes by, and I go up to the house to see what's happening. And I see a 15-year-old boy who I've met 3 times in my life in the kitchen with a sledgehammer, smashing the hell out of the head of the catfish, and looks at me and says, they really die hard. Okay. Meanwhile, my husband has told me I hate catfish. And I went back, running back down. Honey, you're eating the damn catfish. And do you know where the rest of the tools and the weapons are? I don't know what to do. We might die tonight. Our kids might die tonight. We survived the vacation. We had a really good time. It was fine. Jim called us mom and dad almost from the moment he met us. 15 years old, just meets these people, had been in care for over 11 years, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with people he didn't want to be with. And he told us almost immediately, I said yes, because I just needed to get the heck out of that house I was in, which I understood because when we picked him up the day that he was to move in with us permanently, he was sitting out on the front step with a plastic garbage bag filled with 3 outfits that didn't fit him and some underwear and nothing else. And I said, Jim, where's your foster mom? Because I'm expecting we're going to go and pick him up and we're going to be invited in and maybe we'll share a meal and she'll grill us to know who these people are taking the child that she supposedly cared for. And he said, she's in there. And I went in, kind of scared. She's standing at the sink washing dishes. And I introduced myself and she said, yeah, I know, he's out there. Isn't he waiting for you? It's not an unusual experience for our kids. It was an eye opener for me. It was an eye opener for me. It was one of the first things that taught me what it's like to be a kid in care. One of the very first. And so I'm driving home, kids are in the back. My husband's looking at me out of the corner of his eye because I can't tell him why it is that there are tears rolling down my cheek, but I know that this kid has had a rough time. And I also know because the social worker told me, our social worker was a little bit casual. He said, you know, Jim's a mama killer. Like, do you mean that seriously? Literally, mama killer? He said, well, no, not really. I mean, he's never been violent, but he's never had a good mother and he does not like women. And so for about 2.5 years, he never spoke to me unless somebody was there to witness it. The one time that he did speak to me when we were alone, he grabbed me. He didn't hit me, but he grabbed me. And when I explained what happened to my husband when he came home, again, the man he called dad, but he wasn't letting him be dad. My husband handled it really well. I did something right though. And I didn't know I was doing it right until years later. So 2 years now have gone by. This kid has not talked to me unless there's a witness. And I walked in the room one day when he was laughing. And the second I walked in the room, he stopped laughing. He was watching something on TV. He never wanted me to see him happy. He never wanted me to see him relaxed. He was just always on guard. And I said, Jim, I need you to do me a favor for just a second. I just want to say something to you and you don't have to answer me, but I just want you to hear something that's important for you to know. The day that your dad and I met you and we looked in your eyes, I said, we kind of recognized you the same way we recognized Jesse and Max, who were born to us. And that day, you became our son. In that moment, you became our son. I don't know how it happened. It was like magic. But here's the secret that I don't think you know. Even though you call us mom and dad, I know we're not your mom and dad. The only person who can decide if we can be your mom and dad is you. And if you decide that we can never be your mom and dad, you will still be our son. And no matter what you do, you will still be our son. And I just wanted you to know that. And I walked away. A year later, he joined the Navy. Right before he joined the Navy, he did, in his mind, he did something that he thought was going to get him kicked out of the family, and it didn't. And then he went into the Navy. And then for 10 years, all of his mail came to us, and we forwarded his mail from East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, to Hawaii, to Illinois, to Denver, to Maine, to Rhode Island. Every place he had to go, it was his tether. As long as that mail goes back to 315 Washington Street, that means I'm still connected. And he wrote us a letter, and he said, guess what? You are mom and dad. You really are. And you are because you never gave up on me like everybody else did. And what that guy taught me, that's him when he was younger, and the two goofy kids we produced. We got to take credit for that. But what he showed me, what he taught me in that really brief time before we started finding more kids to bring home, was that trauma, the trauma from his mama abandoning him multiple times, the trauma from people promising to be his new mama and hurting him or abandoning him, that trauma caused a pain, caused a tear, caused a rip in his heart that was almost impossible to repair. And that the only thing that was going to repair it was time and consistency. And that wasn't the only trauma. The fact that there were other adults in his life that couldn't intervene and help him added to the trauma. There were people all around him that couldn't help. He had younger brothers and sisters that he couldn't help in spite of having to try. He had CPS workers that came into his life and made decisions for him and never asked him what he wanted. He was 15 years old. He knew what he wanted probably from the time he was 3 or 4, and nobody ever asked him. Or if he told them, they did exactly the opposite. That stranger making decisions for him. He was separated from his culture and his community, and he was brought to a whole new place. And the only reason he said yes was because it was better than what the alternative was. A huge leap of faith. And in his mind, it didn't really matter, because just like I was stupid enough to think at 18, I would have finished my job, he was smart enough to know that at 18, he could leave and he could do whatever he wanted, right? He had so many transitions, and every one of them was a bad one, including when he came to us. It was really not a good transition. His social worker should have been there and he couldn't be. And here these two strangers come, it's almost like we're abducting him. He'd met us before, but he didn't know us. And now he's in his forever home. I think we were his 8th forever home, which is also a thing we shouldn't be saying to kids. And all of those impacts on him, all of those losses prior to the adoption made that attachment in adoption super hard for him, super hard for him. All of those failed reunifications made him believe you can never trust a mom. You can never trust a woman. And he had to be able to reject me before he could accept me, right? It was so important. I have always been grateful to him because he made it possible for us to be able to be okay parents for the next kids that came along. He developmentally was a grown adult in so many ways, but emotionally he was a little kid that couldn't even let us in. I was sharing with, I don't even know, I think it was with you, Lisa, about my other child crying in my arms when we danced. He also, when we danced at his wedding, cried in my arms. And at that time I was working in the field because I decided if my 4 adopted kids had been so screwed up by the system, I owed it to them to get into the system to do something about it. And a colleague of mine was standing next to my husband watching Jim and I dance together. And she said, that's why teenagers should be adopted. But he and I held each other and cried about the fact that here you are now, in a place you never thought you would be. And it's not because of me and it's not because of your dad. It's all because of you. You taught us everything we needed to know. One of the things that I learned when I saw sort of Jim's reaction. So, right, you think about adoptions, right? Us adoptive parents were so excited, right? We've been waiting for this day. We've gotten trained. We're ready. We know what we're going to do. We've got all the love. We're going to give you so much love. I know you're telling me that love won't fix it, but this love will fix it, right? Don't we all feel that way as adoptive parents? Our love is going to fix it. Our love didn't fix anything for this kiddo. What fixed things for this kiddo was for us to step back and to know that the only thing that was going to fix anything for him was time and consistency, and more time and more consistency. I have a picture. I couldn't find it for you all. I wanted to add it to, I've got a bunch of pictures you'll be seeing. I'm not going to be done by 5. Just letting you know. I'll try. I'm going to talk faster. There was a picture of him at his adoption party. We invited, I think, 60 or 70 of our very closest friends and family. And here's this kid on a day when for sure the seal has been stamped, you have lost everything from your past. And we've got a stupid bumblebee with balloons singing for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow" to him. There's a picture somewhere in the thousands of pictures I have of me standing next to him with this big goofy grin on my face, and him standing next to me looking like his favorite puppy just got killed. And I was like, oh boy, there's a huge disconnect between what he's experiencing and what I'm experiencing. And I better pay attention to that stuff, and I better pay attention to that stuff quick. Because if not, I'm going to lose this kid. I'm going to be asking him to be something for me rather than me being something for him. And I better figure that out, or I'm going to lose everything that I've worked for. This is him now. Well, actually, this isn't him now. That's a lie. This is him 15 and a half years ago with his first child, Andrew, who was the first image he had of what he looked like as a baby. Because when he came to us at 15 years old, he came with 2 pictures. One of him as a scraggly 14-year-old standing next to a horse, and one of him in 2nd grade, the little 1-by-1 picture that you give to your old aunt because she wants it. It's the only pictures he has of his past. That look on his face, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm his mom and I sure can. That look on his face is both joy and revelation. That's what I look like as a baby. And that healing for his inner child was all about becoming a dad. It was all about becoming a dad and knowing that he had grandparents that were going to be there for his kids. This is him now, sort of ish, with his dad and his 2 younger brothers who came to the family first. Jim and Jesse on the far end. Jesse was 8 when Jim joined the family. Jesse was and is a super, super smart kid, and he excelled at school. Jim got bounced around, and if those of you that know about education and foster care, a kid loses about 6 months of education every time they move. So Jim is a super smart guy, but not academically at that time. He's since things have really changed for him. He hated Jesse. He was so jealous of Jesse. And Buddy and I did something right only by accident. We never intervened between the 2 of them. Guess why? Because Jesse never told us we had to. Jesse and Max, from the time they were little ones, heard about foster care and adoption because we knew that was going to be our path. And there was never a question in their minds because they were also part of the home study and preparation process. Max was only 2, so it didn't matter. But at 8, Jesse took it in. And he believed us when we told him honestly, this is your brother. This isn't like you can get rid of him if you complain to us, like so many kids that are already in the family do. He never complained. And they're close as can be now because of that. So Jesse also did not just some learning, but some teaching. He did a great job with that. The next kiddos that joined our family were Justice and Tanya. Justice is the smaller one, but the older one. And this is Tanya, and I'm going to tell you about some of the things they taught me, because boy, did they teach me. This is one of the first pictures of them with their brother Max. So Max is born to me. Tanya is 1 month younger than Max, and Justice is 1 month and 1 year older than Max. See a little something happening in that picture there? Just a little bit of something happening in that picture with those two girls needing to be close to one another. And yeah, he's there, right? He's there. Those poor two kids thought, so they're 6 and 7 in that picture. Max is also 6. He was kind of a peanut. Justice and Tanya both thought that I only loved Max and I hated them. And it took a couple of years to finally figure out why. Justice was much older when we finally figured it out. She started, I apologize for that. In this picture, she appears to be a girl. Justice is actually a boy. Anyway, Justice said to me, I know you love Max, I know you hate us, and started beating me up pretty much at like 10. And I had to hold her in order to keep from being beat up. And as I was holding her, I got a little bit of a little clue. And I said, I need to know what I'm doing. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Let me know, help me understand how you know that. Because I know that you know it because you're so sure that you know it, but you need to tell me how you know it. Well, you're always telling us what to do and you're never telling him what to do. Okay, tell me more about that. Well, like you're always telling us like how to do things differently. Okay, tell me more about that. And what it turned out was these two little guys had been in 13 homes between them before they came to our house. They never lived with birth mama. And we found out as they got older that every bit of abuse that they had experienced happened in foster care. And every single foster placement that they went to had different rules and different things that they were supposed to do. I just want a very quick sidebar. I don't tell you stories about my kids that they don't know I tell you. And my kids work with me a lot around training people. I usually say that right in the beginning and I try to rush and I didn't, but they know I talk about them. They give me permission. There's a lot of stuff I'm never going to tell you about them. But so those two young people didn't know what it was like to grow up in a family. Any kind of a family, really, because they kept moving from place to place. And once Justice started talking to me about some of the like minute little things that proved that I loved Max, I was like, oh my goodness. Ah, honey, that makes so much sense. Well, you know, Max has been here since even before he could talk. Now think about your cousin. Unfortunately, we were close to my sister, still are. She has 2 little boys that were a few years younger, so they were babies still. I said, think about Casey and Sawyer. Would you expect them to know stuff when they were just little babies if nobody taught them? Do you see how Kara is? Because Justice adored Kara and still does. Do you see how their mama Kara is with them and how she teaches them every day and tells them things even though they can't talk? They still are taking it in? Yeah. I said, well, that's what happened with Max. I'm not mad at you when I'm telling you things. I'm trying to help you learn things that no one ever bothered to tell you. So there's a big difference between being mad at you and just trying to teach you. Does that make sense? And we were able to talk through it. It didn't reduce the jealousy. And I will tell you, Justice not so much, but this little pipsqueak here, Tanya, stole everything she could from Max for most of her life. There's another character coming along who did it even more so. And this dude here, the most generous human being in the world, took it. He learned a whole lot about trauma and recovery himself. This is Justice now. No, it isn't. Why am I saying that? This is Justice. This is Justice, I think it's 16. Super angry person. Super angry person. Always telling me what to do, always getting in the way of me trying to parent his sister Tanya. Every time I tried to parent Tanya, Justice would do something outrageous so that he could get in trouble and Tanya could be off the hook. And I did 2 things. When he was a little bit younger, I said, you guys, Tanya, Justice, me, we're going for a ride. I hadn't met Dr. Perry yet, but let me tell you what, long car rides are your friend because you have to stay regulated. You're driving a car. You can't be yelling at kids like my dad did. You can't be doing this because you're not going to stay on the road. Long car rides are our friend. So we drove for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I finally found out that when Justice and Tanya were in one of their foster homes, when they would talk at night at 3 and 4, which children will tend to do when they're going to bed at night, they were in trouble and they would stand in the corner and Justice would be asked, who's getting a beating first, you or your little sister? And Justice is a smart kid. Maybe you'll get tired before you get to me. She's bigger than me. So Justice would always say Tanya, and has spent the rest of his life trying to make up for that, always trying to intervene. But once I knew the reason, then it was easier. And you know what I wanted to do and what I had been doing before I finally found out the reason was the dumbest thing ever. You got to let me be the mother. I'm the mother around here. Barking at him like that Charlie Brown teacher in the background. When I knew that, then I could say, Justice, thank you. So you know Tanya better than anybody. Can you partner with me? Can you help me know better how to do the mom thing? Because, I mean, after all, you've been there for her whole life, not me. And we got to be partners. And right around that time, Justice said to me, hey, Kim, it's 3 years into our relationship. So we got Jim that's calling me mom, day one. It's like he's calling me Joe. And Justice is calling me Kim for 3 years, like he's calling me a swear, whatever one you want to pick. I said, you know, or he said to me, I just want you to know, you are never going to be my mother until I know who my mother is. Okay. All right. Well, here's the deal, Justice. I have no clue who your mother is. And I was told by the agency that your mom wanted the adoption closed. But here's another thing I think. I think that's your choice, not her choice. So let me call. And I called the social worker and I said, I need your help. I need you to find Justice and Tanya's birth mom. We need to meet her. Well, it's a closed adoption. Okay. I have an eraser and I have a key. I mean, I don't know. I know there are laws too, but we can change them. I want you to call and see if you can make it happen. And thank God she did. So we got to meet Francine. We got to get to know her. We got to have picnics together and go out to lunch together and do all kinds of things together. And after we got to know Francine, miraculously, I got to be mom. And part of the reason why I got to be mom was because Francine said to Justice, you've got 2 mamas now. You've got me and you've got that foster lady. We'd been an adoptive family for a few years by then, but that's okay. I knew who had the power in this relationship and I knew who needed to give it up. And that was me. I needed to make a space for Francine to own. The other thing that I did for Justice was I said to him one day, hey, you seem to know a whole lot more about how to be a good parent and what foster care is about than I do. And I just got this new job where I am supposed to find kids that will talk about what kids need. Would you be on my Speak Out team? And Justice, this is Justice in the Speak Out team, working with a friend of mine. Some of you might even know Elaine Theodore. She's an amazing actress and adopted person and advocate who came and did this lost and found company with us for a while. And Justice got to find his voice. And Justice got to be part of a group. The only rules for this group were you had to have some experience not living with the mom or dad you were born to, and you had to be willing to tell adults how to do a better job. Tell me a kid that doesn't want to tell adults how to do a better job. And it was wonderful because the more Justice got to tell other adults how to do a better job, he didn't have to tell me how to do a better job as much. I learned a whole lot and I didn't get in as much trouble. So that was a really helpful thing. But what it did also help me do is to understand rejection. I had never been rejected like I was, except for old crappy boyfriends. I had never been rejected the way that I had been rejected by my kids. And for those of you, and I know you're all out there because I know who my people are, there's nothing that hurts more than to give your heart to a child and have them chew it up and spit it in your face and then want to poop on it. Because it hurts too much for them to take it. It just hurts too much for them to take it. But what we have to do is we have to focus on what is happening for them in that moment. We have to think of it always from the point of view of the child, always from the point of view of the child. We have to think about what are those cues. Tanya used to talk to me all the time, and she still does, about the faces that I would make. And she would be able to read my mind by the faces I would make. She one time said to me, "It's so funny to watch you, Mom, when you get on the phone and you're mad at somebody and you try to use that sweet voice, but I see that on your face you're ready to kill them." Or when you're mad at us and the phone rings and you go from, "Ah, ah, 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 hello." I tried to tone down a while after that. You've got to give them that undivided attention that tells them they are the center of your universe, because they've never been the center of anyone's universe as far as they can tell. And I got to say, in this day and age, oh, it's not even near me. Yay. Our phones, our social, all of it, it's just too much. It's just too much. I travel a lot and I walk through airports and I just want to cringe when I see little toddlers trailing behind mom or dad, and the mom or dad have their I'm like, one day one of those kids is going to get picked up and nobody's going to know what happened to that kiddo. You got to pay attention. Undivided attunement. That's what our kids need. Lots of it. We've got to find times to hang out with them. One of the things that we did in order to respond to rejection was we decided that when our kids were acting up when they were teenagers, not so much with Jim and Jesse, but the pack, when you have a pack, it gets a little crazy. We didn't like grounding, because if you ground a kid and you're not willing to stay home with them, you actually haven't grounded them. You've given them the opportunity for another party. And we like to go to the movies and we like to go out to dinner and we like to go all kinds of places. So for our family, when you got grounded, we learned that grounding meant you could do all kinds of fun things with mom and dad and not with your friends. And so if you're grounded, yeah, I felt like going to see this movie. I guess we're all going to see a movie. I feel like going out to McDonald's. I guess we're all going out to McDonald's. And after a while, what started happening was, instead of rejecting us, our kids would squeal on themselves and say, "Oh, I did something wrong. I think I should be grounded for a month," which was way too expensive. So we'd say, "Yeah, it'll be a month, but if you're doing okay, maybe it'll be 2 weeks. We'll see what happens." But our kids, when they're acting up, that's their only way to get that attention that they need, because that's what they've learned. If you're a good kid, Jim was a good kid. That's why he languished in care for 11 years. He never did anything to bring himself to the attention of the department to get them to do anything to get him into a permanent family. If you're a good kid, nobody pays attention. You're not bothering them. You get attention when you're a bad kid, when you're in foster care. And so we needed to flip that script for them. Knowing when it's okay to talk to your kid and when it's not, woohoo, that's one that was the hardest for me to learn. And that's one, oh, this is Justice now. Look at Justice. A year ago last week, Justice married his beloved Shamiqua, who is the most fabulous daughter-in-law. Justice and I danced, and Justice cried for the first time in his life. And as the two of us are sobbing and drenching each other's clothes, I said to him, "Oh my God, honey, you can finally feel something other than rage." And he said, "You're right, Mom." And that girl, Shamiqua, she's my heart, man. She made it possible for him. We might have laid a little foundation, but she made it possible. Yeah, man, 32 years later, he finally let me hold him, right? That's how long you have to wait. It's a journey. This was another learning moment for me. I am a terrible artist, but I don't know what happened to this picture that Tanya drew for me. Tanya drew this picture for me when she was about 6.5 or 7, which means she was only in our family for about 6 months. And this is her experience of her mother. I never shut up. My friends in the audience, they know I like to talk. I'm a word person. I play word games. I read words. I read dictionaries. I'm a talker. Tanya is not a person who is good with words, not her own, not others. She's a very good artist. That is not her picture. That's a recreation. So she drew this picture of me. And if I could say art therapy, man, that was therapy for me. I I looked at it. I was horrified. I wanted to ask her to please never be that mean to me again. But I did start putting my fingers in front of my lips to remind me to keep them closed quite quickly. Here's old Tanya, my Tanya. So Tanya has a lot of different struggles. Tanya has some medical issues. Tanya has some mental health issues. Tanya's a brittle diabetic. And I'm going to talk about another piece of Tanya in a second. But Tanya went from a really, really sad, needy little kid to a kid who finally met Uncle Curtis, her birth uncle, and Uncle Curtis's little girl, Shanae, who he parents, which was incredibly healing for a little girl who said to me at 8, Mom, when I have babies, you're going to take care of them, right? Because people like me can't keep their babies. Tanya believes that all Black children got raised by white families. That was Tanya's belief. It was the saddest thing I'd ever heard in my life. And again, knowing Francine, being able to open up that adoption meant that we got to know Curtis. And we got to know, for Tanya, not only do Black people keep their children, because by the way, I will tell you one of the things I learned early and intentionally, it was one of the things that I did without having to be taught. We already had a lot of diverse friends, but when we even considered adopting these 2 Black children, we engaged some of our Black friends to be parenting partners with us, because there was absolutely no way that either my husband or I, sorry, were equipped to be able to prepare Black children to be alive in this country, in this society, in this day and age. So we had Black moms and Black dads that were part of our extended family. So Tanya had seen Black people with their Black children, but didn't put it together that that could be her story. It needed to be a relative. And so Curtis gave us that gift, which opened her heart to be able to love her brother Jim's children too, and to not be sad about it and not to be jealous about it. And so one of the things, again, that we had to learn the hard way, because I think sometimes systems are so dumb. This whole idea of your child's going to come to you, and then you can get them involved in different activities once they are like settled. Or I've heard social workers talk about, well, we can't pursue permanency until they start integrating their loss experiences, right? I'm sorry, I've had some loss experiences in my life. I've kind of integrated them. I'm 68 years old this month, and they are not fully integrated, and I am still allowed to proceed in the world on my 2 feet and engage in relationships with people without having resolved my losses. You don't resolve losses. You learn how to live with them and through them. But for our kids that come to us, we're constantly being told, well, when they this, then you can that, right? When they that, you can this. And one of the big things that we do with kids is we talk about not having permanency for them until they've resolved some of their stuff. They can't resolve their stuff until they know who they're going to grow up with. And even the kids that are the most exuberantly challenging still need to be in the Cub Scouts or the Girl Scouts or on the team. They need to be part of the community in order to learn how to be part of the community, right? And so that was a huge thing that I was constantly battling up against. We've got to have those everyday interactions. We've got to have the opportunity to start making a normal life for our kids, or whatever can approach normal after they've had so much disruption, after they've had so many losses. We have to do whatever it takes. So my husband and I, this is no word of a lie, literally coached or co-coached every single team our kids were on, because people weren't always nice to our kids. But if we were there, we could make sure they were. And let me tell you how obnoxious it is to have a softball coach whose only skill is, great job, honey, run fast. But I will tell you this, we also, both my husband and I, every year got all the kids on our teams that nobody else wanted and everybody else was mean to. And there were a whole lot of kids and a whole lot of parents in our community that were super happy that the crazy Stevenses moved in because their kids had a place to belong. But most importantly of all, this kid, after 4 years being on the Bad News Bears and losing every single game almost, the last year they qualified, they beat the most obnoxious team that beat them all the time. And who scored the winning run? Not Tanya, but the great big redheaded girl that cried every time she got on base. She scored the winning run. It was fabulous. For 10 years, I'd run into kids, Mrs. Stevens, remember when we won? I do. I think about it all the time. That's the stuff our kids need, right? The regular stuff. Building trust for our kids is so important and so hard, right? We've got to build those trust pieces on their developmental age. And for our kids, and I'm going to talk about Tanya here, my good old girl Tanya, when she's triggered, when she's sick, when she's sad, she is 5 years old. Sometimes she's 3 years old. It took a while to understand that, right? But that's a big girl who still sometimes climbs in my lap. That's a big girl who was in the hospital. I think she was 32 at the time. She was in the hospital for quite a bit of time. She's in and out of the hospital a lot. And anyway, she asked me, I was there visiting her. She asked me if I would climb in bed and lay down with her. And she put her head on my chest. And this is a girl that's not real articulate. Remember, she doesn't like words. Mom, I can hear your heartbeat. Can you? I can. Just like a baby. Mom, do you think the reason why I'm always so messed up is I never got to have that before? Yeah, honey, I do. It's not your fault. So you want to listen to my heartbeat? You do it any old time. And whenever Tanya's feeling like she's down and sad, she goes right back to, I need my mommy. So I gotta give my husband a shout out. He called me a few weeks ago. So Tanya called again. Oh, what happened? Somebody hurt her feelings. Somebody made her sad. I said, so what did you do? He said, well, I talked to her like I talked to a 5-year-old. Good job, honey. That is exactly what I wanted you to do. Yeah, I consoled her. I was pretty proud of myself. Because, in our family, we're very lucky. We've got 2 people doing all the parenting. And we made a decision a long time ago. Each one of us has a different skill set. And we better figure out what those skill sets are and who they're best with. And Tanya's always been my girl. Buddy has not. Actually, both Tanya and Christine have always been mine. He wanted the athletic ones. I know what he's like. Anyway, I was very proud of him because he managed. That's Ismay with Tanya right there. That's one of the people we welcomed into our family to be a mama. But here's what we know, right? And this is true. Trauma is a permanent brain injury. Children who experience trauma have experienced permanent psychological harm. They can heal, but it takes time, a lot of time. And it takes a lot of grace, both for them and for us, right? Here's another thing that I think it took me a while again to figure this out. And Tanya and Justice are really good examples of this, as well as I think Jim is too. People have sort of an internal and external locus of control. If you guys heard about locus of control, right? So if you think you are in control of your world and yourself, you are going to be one of those people that no matter what the world throws at you, you're probably going to come up rising because you feel as though you have the capacity, the ability, the wherewithal to make it happen. Tanya is a person who has a completely external locus of control. Things happen to her. She feels that she has no control over them. Super important for me as a parent to finally figure that out, because that was equally as important as figuring out the difference between can't and won't, right? Tanya can't do a lot of things that she should be able to do developmentally. It's not that she won't do them, it's that she can't do them. She has been affected by so many things, including she's been affected by fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which we didn't know. But guess what? Once I figured it out when she was an adult and I told her, she wasn't embarrassed and she wasn't ashamed. She finally had a reason. Oh, so that's why I can't do it. It's not because I'm stupid. It's not because I'm a bad person. No, honey, you've got this thing in the middle of your brain called the corpus callosum, and your mama didn't know she was hurting you when she was drinking. She had no idea, honey. But it hurt that corpus callosum, a word Tanya will, two words Tanya will never be able to say. But I said, that's the thing that lets one part of your brain talk to the other part of your brain. And that's why sometimes you know something one day, but you don't know it the other day. And it's also why I used to think you were lying to me all the time. But you weren't lying to me. I know it now. I can't tell you how many times I've apologized to my kids for things I didn't know. And I can't tell you how powerful it is to apologize to your kids when you find out something different. So for Tanya to know she's not just a bad girl who lies all the time, but rather she's a girl that can't do some things. And when she gets scared, she makes stuff up and fills in the blanks. It's a whole different story, right? Than a stealing liar. It's a whole different story. And it gives her the grace to keep moving forward. I hope this to me, I saw this the other day. I don't know if you guys are sports nuts. My husband has the sports channel on all the time, and I'm always reading a book because it's boring. This came on and I was like, oh my God, Carol Lawson. That is the story of foster adoptive parenting. So I'm going to play this for you. My girl tells me to work. Where are you? Help. No.
You're all good. You know how far we've come? We're almost done.
I did. What?
And then you'll just click the screen.
Oh, okay. Now I know for that.
I was talking with Shay a couple days ago, and one of the things we talked about was how we all wait in life for things to get easier. Think in your own life, if you've waited for something to get easier. Oh, I just got to get through this and then it'll be easy. I just got to get through preseason and then it'll be okay. I've just got to get through my junior year of high school and then the classes are going to get easier. Or I've just got to get to my spring of my senior year of college and it's going to be easier. It's what we do. We wait for stuff to get easier. It will never get easier. What happens is you handle hard better. That's what happens. Most people think that it's going to get easier. Life is going to get easier. Basketball is going to get easier. School's going to get easier. It never gets easier. What happens is you become someone that handles hard stuff better. So that's a mental shift that has to occur in each of your brains. It has to. Because if you go around waiting for stuff to get easier in life, it's never going to happen. And then what happens? Oh, it's so hard. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, I don't know when is it going to be easy for me? Oh, it's easy for other people. It's not. It's hard. And the second we see you handling stuff, handling hard better, what are we going to do? We're going to make it harder. We're going to make it harder. Because we're preparing for you for when you leave here. Not just basketball and life. And if you think life, when you leave college, is going to be all of a sudden get easy because you graduated and you got a Duke degree, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. So make yourself a person that handles hard well. Not someone that's waiting for the easy. Because if you have a meaningful pursuit in life, it will never be easy. If you're trying to win a championship, if you're trying to have a family, ask your parents. Do you think it was ever easy for them to raise kids? Karen, is it easy? It's not. Any meaningful pursuit in life, if you want to be successful at it, it goes to the people that handle hard well. Those are the people that get the stuff they want. People that wait around for easy, you probably see them at the bus stop. They're waiting for the easy bus to come around. Easy bus never comes around. You've got to handle hard. Okay, so don't get discouraged through this time. If it's hard, don't get discouraged. It's supposed to be. And don't wait for it to be, oh, I just got to get through the summer. And then it'll all of a sudden get easy in the fall. No, it won't. It won't. It won't get easy in the fall. So make yourself someone that handles hard well. And then whatever comes at you, you're going to be great. You're going to be great, okay?
Is that not what foster adoptive parenting is all about, right? I saw that and I literally started laughing and crying at the same time because I distinctly remember I was immediately transported back to about 4 years into all of the kids being in the family. And there was this one morning that my husband and I got everybody ready for school and off to school, and there hadn't been a fight and there hadn't been a meltdown and everything went well. And we looked at each other and we're like, man, we got this. We're doing it now. And like the next day came, right? And then the next 30 years came. And let me tell you, yesterday sucked. It was really hard, but we've learned to handle it better. And I think part of the reason we've learned to handle it better is we've also learned to listen to our children because they know what they need, even as adults. And we've learned to surround ourselves with people. He can talk all he wants. He's adorable. We've surrounded ourselves with people who understand who our family is. And we've shed some people that don't understand so much. And we've stopped expecting things because expectations, as someone brilliant told me, are just setting yourself up for disappointment, right? You just have to take what comes and you make what you can make out of it. So I just loved that. I thought it was brilliant is what I thought. And I don't know. No, I don't know what I've done. I did. I probably again, and I can't see. Just hit next. Oh, there it is. Next. That says next. Help. I'm so good at screwing up and asking for help. This is the thing, right? Our kids who need, and this brings me to Melvin. The kids who need the most love will ask for it in the most unloving ways. One of the things I think we have to think about are what are the love languages that our kids bring to us? I know what my love languages are. I'm really good at my love languages. I'm really bad at remembering that my love languages are not the same as other people's love languages. And I had to learn that. For me, love is like, it's just, it's everything all the time. Can you imagine being a sweet little kid who's just gone through all kinds of trauma and moving around and going here and going there and coming into my house and I'm wanting to, it's taken a long time for me to learn to say, is it okay if I hug you? Really hard lesson to learn because that's my love language. My love language though is also food. My love language is also listening. My love language is also watching disgusting zombie movies with my granddaughter because she likes them and that way maybe she'll talk to me. I've learned to adapt my love languages to other people's love languages. My husband has learned to adapt his love language to other people's love languages. But one of the things that we really need to think about is how are we communicating love and are we making love an action rather than just a word? Love is an action. Love is making a family, love, all of that. That is having the worst possible day on Tuesday where you all hate each other and you think the world is going to come to an end and everyone wants to burn the house down. And you get up on Wednesday and you say, would you like toast for breakfast or pancakes? Because we're going to do it all over again. You might not want to, but we're going to do it all over again. And no matter what you do, I'm not leaving. No matter what you do. It's a hard thing to say. I once thought about this too. I thought, like, you know, there's that whole, is there anything I could do that would make you leave me? And I did. I went through the worst things. One of my kids murdered someone. One of my kids raped someone. Something like that. I'm like, yeah, you know, that still is my kid. That still is my kid. And if that happened, what did I do wrong? How can I support that kid to rehabilitate? How can we think about restorative justice? There is literally nothing that my kids could do that would make me walk away, including walk away from me. Justice, when he was trying to figure out who he was, finally found his birth dad after not knowing him, after not knowing anybody that ever looked like him. And Justice joined a gang that his father headed up and he disappeared for 3 years. And then 3 years later, I got a phone call. Hi, it's Justice. Do you think it'd be all right if I came to your house? You mean home? Yeah, of course it's okay if you come home. And Justice, because we respected him enough to believe that he could do it, lived in our home for another couple of years while the gang that he was a member of was in the next town over. And somehow, I will never know how he got out of the gang, and he doesn't want me to, and I don't want to. It's not my business. Managed to keep the gang and the family separate from one another the whole time he lived with us, because he knew when he came back that we really were a family. He didn't know that we were really a family until he tested it. That's when he finds out, right? This whole thing around attachment, I'm going to ask a question with no judgment whatsoever. Does anybody have a child that they believe has reactive attachment disorder in this room? No? Nobody? Maybe? I'm so excited to see that maybe, oh, yeah? Yeah, reactive attachment disorder is, it's a diagnosis that when we started our journey, lots of kids were being diagnosed with. And there were all these terrible books written about it, like that they were sociopaths and they killed animals and stuff like that. Our kids have a hard time attaching because they have been taught not to attach. And so I'm glad that I didn't see a whole lot of hands going up. And it's funny because when Pat first asked me to do a presentation for the staff, he said, I want you to do a presentation on reactive attachment disorder. And I said, I don't believe in it. And he said, that's why I want you to do it. We teach our kids to detach in the system. They come into foster care and we're not supposed to get close to them because we don't know if they're going to stay. We're told to love them like they're our own, but if we do, then we're the bad foster parent that's meddling. If they end up in any kind of a congregate shelter, they're not allowed to have any kind of physical touch or comfort. And then we wonder why they're sex trafficked. Then we wonder why they go underground to get their emotional and physical needs met. Then we wonder why little girls and little boys are having sex way too young. Well, because we've denied them physical affection. And so when we think about attachment repair is all about getting close again, all about getting comfortable with another human being being in proximity, with another human being being able to look at you and read your mood and not need your mood to change for them, but at least to understand it and to be present. It's really long, hard work. Justice and Tanya have been in my family for 30, I can't do the math suddenly, 32 years. It's this year, well, last year with Justice, this year with Tanya, that I feel like they finally get it. And even still, it's a little shaky, right? It takes a long time. The other thing that it takes is a lot of laughter, a lot of humor. You and your partner, if you have one, you and your friends and your support system. But I especially looked at my kids the whole time they were growing up. And when I saw them starting to laugh, I thought, okay, we're getting somewhere. And when I saw them able to laugh at themselves, then we were really getting somewhere. And you know how long it took Tanya to laugh at herself? It took her until she was 33 years old to laugh at herself. We were driving down the road trying to have a serious conversation. And in the middle of it, she said, I like chicken. And ever since then, I like chicken has been a joke about Tanya that Tanya tells. 33 years old before she could laugh at herself. I make fun of myself 24 hours a day. I think it's a good thing to do. It's kind of healthy. But kids that have been traumatized don't laugh at themselves. Okay, so I promise I won't go much longer. All right. I can't help myself. My kids. So this is Melvin. Look at Melvin. What do you see in that picture of Melvin and Mom? He's pushing me away. I'm trying so hard to get close. And his little hand is like, oh, that kiddo, he didn't let me hug him unless he was sick as a dog. I used to pray for him to get sick. It was a terrible thing. If that little boy would get sick, I could hold him. It would be so great. So I really think, like, you hear people talk about successful adoptions. And for the longest time, the reason why I really wanted to start this youth speak out team that I had years ago was because I was sick and tired of seeing panels of foster kids who were the successful ones. And it was always the ones that went to college and were like, they were all so cool and so smart and so resilient and all that good stuff. Success to me is not about whether or not you got a job or you went to school or you did this or you did that. Success to me is that you're connected and you allow yourself to be connected. That's what a successful adoption looks like. That's the whole point, is that you are connected, because the only way you can heal from anything that has happened to you is in a relationship. The primary job of adoption is attachment. Attachment can only happen and it's necessary for building relationships, and healing only happens in relationships. So it's super important. So you remember that picture of me with my mouth wide open? 5 years later, 6 years later, maybe 7 years later, Melvin's the same age that Tanya was when she drew that picture. Melvin is not a great artist, as you can see. This picture is a picture, the original whole picture. That's Buddy, big smile. Buddy was fun. Everybody loved Buddy. I hated Buddy then because everybody loved Buddy. And that's me up there. That little head with legs. Anybody know what those two round things are? Those are my ears. I learned, didn't I? I shut that damn mouth and opened those damn ears. And that's why he was so mad at me, because I could hear and I knew what was going on. And I would call him on it. And he hated that, boy. He hated that. Those two pictures, that's the story right there. Shut your mouth and open your ears. They won't like you for it, but eventually they will. Good old Mel. Good old Mel. One of my favorite stories about Mel used to, several people in the room know my son Melvin died of a heroin overdose 10 years ago. Melvin was an incredibly successful adoption, because every time we saw Melvin for the 3 years he was trying to be in recovery, we never left each other without a huge hug. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. That boy knew that he was loved. And I know that he knew it because I woke up in the middle of the night he died, at the moment he did. So I know. But that kid would steal anything he could. He stole my computer with all of the pictures of the family and hawked it. That was great. But he also used to, and this is actually a very funny story. And it's why I'm telling it, because when you can find the humor in it, in the awful things our kids do, it's so healing. He used to steal my ATM card and my car keys at night when we would be in bed asleep. And he one night stole my ATM card and my car keys, and then we were pissed and blah, 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 don't do it anymore. All the other kids were out of the house. About a week later, I think I was in Canada doing work, and my husband calls me in the morning. He says, "You can't believe what happened now." "What now?" He said, "Well, I went to hide the car keys last night when I went to bed. I put them in your jewelry box. Somehow he thought Melvin wouldn't go into a jewelry box because it was a woman's jewelry box. I'm thinking, I don't have expensive jewelry, but this is a kid that steals. He might think some of it's worth something. Why would you put the keys in the jewelry box? Anyway, he did. And before he went to bed, he went in his room, our room, and looked in the jewelry box. The keys are gone. Rational buddy says to Melvin, I need the car keys. I don't have them. Melvin, in this house are you and me and Jake, the golden retriever. He doesn't have a license and doesn't know how to drive a car. You're the only one that could have taken him. I didn't take him. So Buddy decides in his wisdom not to get into a fight, because why? The kid can probably hardwire the car anyway. And he wakes up at midnight because he hears this shuffling. And he looks over the bed, and there is Melvin. All dressed in black, black hoodie, kind of like that, but without the white or the chains, because then you could see him. And he is G.I. Joe crawling in the house into the room so he can put the keys back and tell Buddy that he's crazy, because he loved doing that too. And Buddy says, Melvin, I see you. Like a 3-year-old under the table. I can't see you. You can't see me. Melvin, I see you. He turns the light on. Melvin, I see you. I said, geez, what did you do? He said, well, you know, I had 2 choices. I could beat the shit out of him, or I could tickle him. So I tickled him. And we rolled around on the floor laughing while I tickled him for a while. And then I said, you're a pain in the ass. And that was that. Until I got home 2 days later, and both Buddy and I were sick in bed. I'd caught something while I was gone, gave it to him. Here's your gift. We're sick in bed, and Melvin comes to the door and he says, can you give me a ride to my friend's house? And I said, no, we're sick. And by the way, and he said, well, I'd drive myself, but I don't know where Dad hid the keys. You gotta laugh at this stuff, right? I mean, he was a clever person. He was so clever. Anyway, I'm at the end. Humans learn to be humane. Dr. Bruce Perry, absolutely. The capacity to care, to love, to do any of that stuff only comes when you're taught it. And you only can be taught it in the context of a relationship. You just can't do it any other way. And I'm going to also tell you this thing, Ron Kim, brilliant woman on our board of directors, right? Are you clapping? Yep. The first 10 years of a kid's life, the parent's job is to keep them safe. The second 10 years is to teach themselves to keep themselves safe. But the next 50 or more years is all about making sure that you keep that relationship. And so when you're thinking about your little ones, and I hear people tell, oh, when they get to be 18, believe me, when they get to be 18 is when it starts. That's not when it finishes. That's when it starts. Our whole job is to want them to come to our houses when they're old and they don't have to. We want them to still want to be around us. This is them now, right? Look at those happy people. They, by choice, like to be around each other. That's important. Their spouses, their kids, and their cousins, they all want to be around each other. That is hugely important. I have 5 siblings. I don't talk to 3 of them. So clearly, I did something, my husband did something, and our kids did a whole lot to repair some generational trauma, right? They are so happy together. They have so much fun together. It is just a remarkable thing to see. Now, I don't care if somebody may want to know who I am at some point, you can find out from Pat, but I am going to play this. This is what I want you to take away, is to know your why. Let's see if I can do it.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. if you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's, you know, it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, you know, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director? Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now, right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Okay, here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
I know my why. You guys know yours? You know your why, Antoinette. Don't you fool me. I've met your whys. Can't fool me, lady. Thank you guys for bearing with me as I went way over. It's done. Doesn't matter anymore.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
It was so wonderful having you here.
mm,
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for staying till the end.
yeah, thank